and welcome to Mac Gamecast episode 16, a podcast where we talk about Macs, Mac gaming, tech, history, culture, all kinds of fun things. With me tonight is Sam. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thank you for being here. And Ted, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Fantastic. So today's show is going to be hands-on discussion with the new MacBook Pros Apple released. We had an episode about our predictions, an episode covering just the news. We all well, not all, 3 out of 4 of us, or 5 of us, immediately ordered one. They came in this Tuesday for Sam and I. Casper's won't deliver till a couple more weeks, so we'll hear from him. He's got an upgraded machine, so I am curious to hear from Casper in maybe a month or something what he's got. But yeah, we've got some hands-on XP with Sam and I. Ted's got some stuff about benchmarks. We'll talk about a bunch of stuff. Maybe wrap up with a few game mentions because it's Halloween or about to be Halloween and all that fun stuff. And there's a Steam sale on spooky and horror games, so good time to play something thematic. So, Sam, you've got a 14-inch MacBook Pro, right, in your hands, or even 2 of them. So, maybe you want to open with talking about your, what are your impressions of it? Is it set? Is it living up to your expectations or your predictions, like your actual hands-on feel and use?
Yeah, so I have the base 14, like the absolute base model. It's really, really nice. Just like the first like initial impression that I got was just like the machine just feels it's just so nice, and it's like thick and like heavy, but like in a good way, not in like a cumbersome way, but just like it feels just like a really high quality piece. Like right. The like screen hinge is perfect when you're opening it up. And it's just such a nice machine. And I know this isn't a new thing for these new M1 Pros and Maxes, but the instant on that came out with the original M1 chip is like, I didn't think I read about that like a year ago when the M1 first came out and was like, oh, like instant on, like that's every laptop has that. It's like weird how much I like it. Like I have the 14-inch beside me on my left, and I have my work fully loaded Intel 16-inch on my right. The M1 Pro machine, you can like turn it off and on or like lock it, whatever you want to say, like as if it was like a phone or an iPad. Can't do that with the Intel machine. If you like open and close the lid too fast on the Intel machine, you might cause like a kernel panic or something. So it's just like it's not even like a benchmark thing, but just like it's really nice. I did some video editing in Davinci Resolve. Performance is really good. I don't have like the most strenuous workloads, but my export times were around similar to my fairly powerful desktop computer, right, with like a high core Ryzen CPU and a NVIDIA 3070. So it was about a 5-minute export on both of them for the same video clip. So that's not like a super scientific test, but it's competing with my desktop for video editing.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's absolutely Apple's target market with these machines. I mean, it really always has been with their Pro line, targeting audio, video professionals. By video, I'm also including things like photography and visual or audio, auditory stuff has been their target market for a very long time in their Pro lines. And that hasn't changed here. The good news is, absolutely out of the box. I was also very impressed immediately. The look, the feel, was just like, wow, this Apple stuff's always been premium, but this is like next level premium. Like you said, really thick and not like, well, I have the 16-inch, so it's a bit heavier in a good way. It has this really cool etched MacBook Pro on the bottom. I can't talk enough. My main thing so far is the display. It is so gorgeous and so nice to look at. Like, I just want to stare at it and like move my mouse around it. It's just so nice and rich, and it's just a really nice display, whatever they put in there. Absolutely beautiful. Super snappy startup, shutdown, sleep, file transfers. I have been doing some testing of like file copying and installing stuff and everything between my super 2020 Intel iMac and that, and the quicker SSD is noticeable. It really is. It's 2.5 times faster, roughly. So that's been nice. I didn't do any like productivity tests yet. I want to. At the moment, I'm mostly just dealing with things like mostly just in relation to the podcast right now. But I do export the podcasts, and the podcast export itself is just an audio file, so it's very quick. But when I do a YouTube export, it treats it as a video because it has to. So that actually takes a while to export. So I haven't tested that yet. I am curious to basically compare it to my Intel iMac, and ScreenFlow is the app I use. So that'll be interesting. I did do some testing on Borderlands 3 and a couple other like indie games. And it was in line with my expectations when I talked about previous podcasts. Like you could, in most case, like an average case, you could probably double your performance. And it really did. It went from like the M1s, the regular M1s, like 20 FPS, then M1 Air anyway, to, about 40 to 50, depending on the scene in general. Now, Borderlands 3 is not a well-optimized game on Mac, and the FPS isn't very stable, even on my Uber iMac. I don't know if there is a Mac that runs it stable. If there is, I would love to know which one, because that'd be great, because it's a really fun game. But nonetheless, the FPS is a huge boost, and I was running it, I think, at pretty high resolution, pretty high settings. That FPS could be way jacked up with lowered settings and resolution. It could probably get up to like 80 or something, or 90 even. Wouldn't be surprised. So yeah, pretty impressed by that quick test. I mean, it's a giant game. It's 205 gigabyte download. But that's because I have all the DLC. It's half that if you only buy the core game. But I'll stop rambling about Borderlands 3. I am in the process, actually, of writing a review for it for the site and inside Mac Game Forums. Actually, I've had like 90% of it done for a long time. I just got to go and finish it. So that'll be released to anyone who's like, why are you talking about a 2-year-old game? Well, because they've more or less treated it as not a live service game, but they're still updating it. It's still getting patched, still getting tweaked. They're still adding events. They're still buffing and nerfing things. They're still adding new content. It's very much an alive game, even though it's 2 years old now. So still worth a mention. But back to the Apple hardware. Keyboard's really nice. The trackpad is, in my opinion, ludicrously oversized. In my left palm, when I just rest, on the computer to type, is always touching the trackpad, like resting on it, which kind of throws me off and seems to occasionally mess with my trackpad use a little bit. Not constantly, but I don't know, once every few minutes or several minutes. That's my only real nitpick about the machine so far, is the trackpad thing in relation. I don't know, it's just so big. I mean, it really doesn't need to be that big, in my opinion. I don't have a measure on me right now, but it's huge. Anyway, maybe I'm just a weirdo.
It's the same size. It is massive. It's the same size as the previous 16, I believe.
Okay, I never actually hands on one of those, so I never thought about it.
I'm looking at it now. It goes from the left command key to the right option key.
Yeah, I wanna take a. Oh, it's just it could be half that size and still be fine, or it needs to lose probably 30%, and then it'd be good in my book. But anyway, that's not going to happen. Oh yeah, let's talk about the notch really quick, the infamous notch. I didn't even really notice it at all, honestly. And as Casper mentioned in a previous show, you can in fact hide your mouse behind it, which is pretty funny. If you want to. I mean, it's up in the Apple bar, so you have no real reason to stick your mouse there, because it's in the middle, and all your Apple stuff's on the left and the right of that menu bar. But as soon as I started using the machine, it just faded. I didn't notice the notch, much like when I used
the only time I noticed it was Davinci Resolve has a ton of menus, like top bar menus,
okay.
And the menus spilled over to the right side of the notch. Even at the highest. What would the word be? The screen scaling that makes it look like you have the biggest screen. Or the screen
right, yeah, okay.
It looks like 1800 by...
Right, which is... What it was, yeah, the default is one below that, so you can't bump it up by one.
But it wasn't a huge deal. It was just
Yeah, apparently...
I noticed it.
Apparently you can tell an app to scale to fit below the camera. I just pulled up this article. Apple has an official support article on this. So if you go to your app info, like Command I or right click and do get info, there's now a new little button toggle called says scale to fit below built-in camera. So that would theoretically prevent that problem from happening for you. I guess I'd have to test it out, but maybe you can check it out sometime and let us know if it's any good.
Really nice thing about the notch that I like it a lot. So I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but if you use apps on full screen in macOS, if you put your mouse up there, maybe you're not intending to actually like get the OS controls up, but you move your mouse a little bit too high, and then the OS controls appear from the top of the screen, and it moves everything down by like a little bit.
Yeah.
On these new machines with a taller screen, it doesn't do that. All your content doesn't ever move, and the menu bar will appear in the black area that's like to the left and right of the notch. If you move your mouse up there, but if your mouse isn't there, so I do it like probably daily, where I'm like trying to click something, I overshoot my mouse too high, the OS controls come up, and then I click the wrong spot because it shifted everything by like 50 pixels. It is really nice. I like that they did that a lot because I really don't like that behavior on full screen mode.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a Monterey thing or is it specific to those machines? Because I haven't tried it on another device.
I think it's specific to those machines because they have that extra space, just like waiting essentially for the menu bar to be there.
Right. Yeah, we should still do like some sort of Monterey review sometime, which is OS. Wait, is it OS 12 or just 11.6?
I think they're calling it 12.
I think it's 12.
Okay. Okay. I'm so tired right now. I'm sorry. I didn't even bother checking that. But overall, I've also shown the machine off to my brother and a couple other buddies. Just quickly, a couple minute previews. They've all been really impressed with it. Same thing, picking it up, looking at it. Oh, great, lots of ports. These are all guys with much older Mac machines, means like 8 to 10 years. And they're thinking of upgrading. They haven't really been impressed with the last 5 or odd years. So they've just been waiting. And now they're like, oh, yeah, like this feels like a machine worth upgrading for and paying that, whatever it is, 22, 24, 25, depending on your config, up to whatever, I guess, $3,500, but $2,500. Feels really good. First impressions are great. Performance is really nice. Battery life's incredible. I've been testing that. Just phenomenal battery life. Mega fast charging. Other nice details. The power cord, the MagSafe cord, is also nice and braided now, which is a really nice touch. They're much more durable, basically, as far as I understand, and they're less prone to like splitting the casing, tubing, whatever on the wires. Less prone to splitting over time, I'm pretty sure, with the braided cord. So that's a really nice touch. The new camera is really nice. I mean, I only tested it in photo booth. So I haven't hopped on like a Discord video call or Skype or something with it yet. But it is, camera's really nice. Captures even like low lighting pretty good. Speakers are pretty solid. Again, we poked fun at Apple's advertising at them for being like over the top.
Theater level.
Definitely not. But honestly, like they're the best laptop speakers I've used. That being said, I also haven't used a lot of laptops recently. So
they're the best.
Yeah.
I think by a mile.
I use them pretty much all day today at work. I brought my laptop to work and just I have a set of speakers there, which aren't very good, honestly. I normally plug my phone into them. But I was like, you know what? I want to check out the computer speakers. And they were like, yeah, really good. So Apple's advertising was bombastic and over the top, but they are very good. So yeah, my only nitpick is the oversized trackpad, and it's a very small nitpick. But yeah, sort of on to the heart of the discussion really is okay. Great hardware, feels great, looks great, easy to use. Everyone likes it so far. But how does it really perform? How does it do in like gaming? How does it do in other things? Ted, did you have perhaps some stats or info for us on some performance?
Well, I was just looking at some other sites online that some people were trying out some games and putting up the frames per second, and it looks like it's doing pretty well. I don't have any specific numbers, but the overall is if it's up, I don't think there's anything that's optimized for M1 right now that's a AAA game, anything that I'm aware of. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but
I guess like World of Warcraft, maybe, if you call
maybe,
that AAA.
yeah, I didn't see any stats on that one, but that one doesn't really. I mean, whenever I played, I rarely ran into any issues.
No, I don't
with frame rate.
actually think of MMOs as AAA games because they're
Yeah,
by
well,
nature
yeah,
not like super
yeah.
demanding because they're meant to have
But the,
wide appeal.
the games that I looked at stats on, it seemed like it, in performing with Rosetta layer on it, it was doing very, very well. I mean, better than I would have expected with Rosetta, and decently when you looked at maybe doing something through Parallels if you were using, trying to play a PC game. But again, there's a loss of frame rate as you go, with all the different layers.
Yeah, I would like to get into the non-native stuff a bit for sure. But again, non-native referring to things like parallels and crossover, not
Right.
referring to Rosetta. See our previous podcast about that, native versus non-native games.
Right.
I had some Andrew Ty, who we had on a few episodes ago. His channel has really, really good content on game performance.
Oh, really? Nice.
I'm hoping he uploads a video comparing it to Intel machines. I don't know if he has access to Intel machines, but if he does, that'd be awesome to see. But he has one right now. I just watched it about an hour ago. It's called M1Pro versus M1 Max.
Nice.
6 times gaming benchmarks. So what this video does is it shows you the M1, the 14-core M1 Pro, the 16-core M1 Pro, and the 32-core M1 Max. All like they have their own, each has their own quadrant, and they're showing the identical gameplay with frame rate. Really, really cool video for just comparing like how much better are these new chips, especially in gaming. So I would say definitely go watch that video, or anybody listening. I don't want to like steal his thunder. But what I've sort of summarized from the video is like if the base M1 is that's our base like 1.0 performance, the 14 core is a bit more than double, so it's like 2.1 or 2.2.
Yeah.
The 16 core is like slightly better, and then the 32 core is about it's about 4 times the performance of the base M1, and it's about maybe 60 to 70% faster than the 16 core M1 Pro.
Interesting.
And I think the reason why the 14 core is a bit over double the performance, because people might see that and go like 14 cores isn't double 8, which is what the base M1 has.
Right.
The reason for that I think is the memory speed. It still has a 200 gigs per second memory, whereas the base M1 only has like 60 gigabits per second or something.
Yeah.
So
that was my impression as well. It was referring to my 16-inch machine versus my M1 Air. It was a bit more than double. It was more like that 2.1, 2.2 feel to it. For reference, I mean, this is the only sad part is we don't actually have any. We have tons of great games to play, and they'll work very well on M1 machines, let alone the M1 Pros and the M1 Maxes. Sorry, you might hear a train in the background. I don't know what's with the trains and when I'm doing the podcast. It like never happens. Then again, go check out Andy's video, Andy Tizer on YouTube. We had him on episode 5. Yeah, he's got like an 8-minute video, super great benchmarks. But he's benchmarking games like Batman Arkham City, which I think is from 2012. Total War Warhammer 2, Sleeping Dogs, Deus Ex Mankind Divided, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. These are all phenomenal games. I'd rate them all like best in class, basically, for their respective genres. I've played them all through. I've reviewed most of them. Phenomenal games, but they aren't we don't have like a hot. We've already discussed this on the show, so I don't want to beat a dead horse or whatever. And as Ted was saying, there's not really, by native it means non-Rosetta AAA games. The few that are out there is like WoW and Disco Elysium, and there's one or two more, but I'm pretty sure they're all like indie or max AA kind of games. There's no brand new, I mean, the biggest things we have is like Metro Exodus, which was released for Mac this year. Honestly, that already ran really well on the M1s, the M1 like the regular M1 chip. Like I was shocked how well it ran on an M1 chip. So double, triple, quadruple that performance on a Pro or Max chip would be like, wow, that game is really well optimized to begin with. So it'd just be like super zoomy mode. I don't think Andy showed that game off, probably because it doesn't have a benchmark. And I think all the games he showed off have literal like benchmark tools in them, which is probably why he picked them, I suspect.
Right.
Yeah. Or he doesn't own the games. I don't know. You have to ask him.
We'll gift it to him on Steam.
Yeah. But yeah, the good news is, regardless of the availability of X new games, they are like very good. They're very, very promising.
I've been watching quite a bit of content on just like the performance analysis, and it varies, I would say, quite a bit by workload. Like if you're using Final Cut or like Logic Pro, like those Apple obviously optimized apps, the performance is like insanely good, like borderline like competing with like a $15,000 desktop Mac Pro. If you're using, so like I saw one review, it was showing here's video editing in Final Cut, performance is absolutely just off the charts, and he's like, then here's the same video and we're doing it in Premiere Pro, which is obviously less optimized. So in those situations, the laptop was still really, really good. It wasn't like I would say it was more like it wasn't punching above its weight, but it was still performing really, really well. It wasn't like competing with a 5-figure Mac Pro. But it was performing like a $3,000 laptop should. It just wasn't performing like a $10,000 desktop. So
right.
Yeah. So I think, but Davinci Resolve is, I know these are all video editing apps, not really video edits, but I bring it up because it's a third-party app. It's not like Apple has zero ownership of Davinci. Right. It's really, really well optimized. So if you're using other third-party apps, they could get there if the developer chooses to. I assume Adobe apps will be there pretty soon.
Yeah, it's a popular market for the pro level applications. I'm sure more of them will tune up their apps, especially Adobe stuff and everything, like you said. Well, all of them, probably not every single one. Does everyone video edit? No. Do a lot of people? Yes. I mean, even people who do game stuff, I mean, they do casual YouTubing. Same thing for me. I muck around, and though I just use ScreenFlow. I'm not sure how well optimized that is in comparison to something like Final Cut or Adobe Premiere or DaVinci. I actually have, I think, a trial of DaVinci or whatever, or the free version. I think there's a free version. I forget.
Yeah, it's free. Or there is a free version.
Right. I have it. I meant to check it out and see if it's any better. That's just on my Intel machine. I haven't tried anything with my M1Pro. I think the first thing I did was set it up and download Borderlands 3 and test it. It's as far as I got. I didn't there's tons of channels doing performance benchmarks. I mean, maybe I'll throw out a few on the channel, Mac Gamecast video, but either Andy Tizer or Mr. Mac Wright or probably some other channels have already put out multiple performance videos right away. So they're on top of it. I'm behind, but yeah, it bodes well for all current games. Basically, they'll run basically really nicely on a Pro or a Max. And it bodes well for the future when, again, this is stuff running through a Rosetta layer, as Ted was saying. I can't remember if Baldur's Gate 3 already has an ARM version, like a non-Rosetta version, which is, Baldur's Gate 3, it's in early access by Larian. That's basically a AAA RPG, if RPGs can be considered AAA.
Yeah, I believe that one does. I was just looking at some more stuff on this, and I think Baldur's Gate actually has a native version.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully they do, because Apple showed them off when they unveiled the M1 last year. Baldur's Gate 3 was in the keynote. So it
was. Back then they didn't have it released, but it was they did special optimization for it can run on the M1, the 7-core GPU M1 Airs. It won't run particularly well, but it can run. you really need to go like one step up, and then it can get like 30 FPS or something. But I think that was a while ago, a year ago, or almost a year ago. So I believe I haven't kept up with the game, so because I'm basically waiting to dive into it once it's out of early access. I'm trying to avoid like spoiling myself, so to speak.
Mr. MacRate has a video titled "First Native AAA M1 Game: Baldur's Gate 3 Performance." And that's from July of this year.
Yeah,
so I think it took a while.
Yeah, I was pretty sure they had it out. I just couldn't recall. Thank you, Mr. MacRate, and thank you, Sam, for putting that out. So that should be. So Larian Studios, I mean, they're longtime favorites of mine because they made Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2. I backed both those games on Kickstarter way back in the day. So I was like original supporter. I was heavily involved in the Divinity Original Sin beta. It's actually how I basically made my YouTube channel like grow. It was literally off Divinity Original Sin videos, mostly tutorials. I think I spent like 150 hours in the beta alone. I spent more time in the beta in the first region of the game than I ever did playing the rest of the game once it released. Kind of silly, but they're a studio that's dear to my heart. They've always come out with Mac support, though Divinity Original Sin 2 was really delayed. I think it took a year and a half or something before they brought Mac support. That was a little weird. Baldur's Gate 3, though, right up a couple weeks or something after they started early access, they added the Mac version. That's because apparently part of their team is actually a Mac porting group called Elveris, Elveris, I believe. And so they're like, but they also do some third-party stuff, and they've helped port some other games. But they're apparently part of Larian. It's like Larian's internal team. So I guess on the side, they like go help port other games or something. I'm a little unclear on how it works. But I find that very interesting. And I'm mostly just happy that, a studio of this size and this quality has basically like a dedicated internal Mac team. And not only do they make a Mac port, they make a very well optimized Mac port. It's like, oh yeah, now we're talking. This is what I want to see more of. Will we? Who knows? But could we? Maybe. It's a start. Yeah, that's, but you have to like RPGs. If you don't, then it doesn't really matter because you'll look elsewhere for your gaming. But if you do, they make some of the best, if not like the best, or I guess CRPGs really these days. So not like Diablo style. Really good stuff there.
One last thing I wanted to point out. This hasn't been like confirmed yet about the new machines, the new MacBook Pros, but it looks like the batteries are in fact somewhat replaceable with it. The old ones, for reference, were like horrible to replace because they were like glued in. You have to like use like a heat gun and like a knife, and like you might cut the battery and cause like a fire. And people have noticed the new ones have tabs on them to like pull them up. So I don't think I've seen conclusive like you can use to replace these because they've only been out for like a week. But it looks like that'll be the case. And if so, that'll be really nice for people who want to keep these machines for like 5+ years because the batteries, it's like the only component that literally wears out.
Right. So. Yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah. If like anyone's wondering to themselves listening, like, should I buy an M1 Pro or M1 Max to game on? Once again, it really depends what kind of games you're trying to play more than anything. It also depends maybe like what are you currently playing on, if anything. You're not assuming you're not a newcomer. If you're a newcomer, yeah, they're a phenomenal place to start. If you already have a machine, hard to say really. It's like, yeah, what kind of games do you want to play? What kind of performance do you want from your games, right? What's your budget? Blah, blah, blah. Let's assume you can afford one of the new machines or one of the, even the Maxes. Your budget's basically $2,500 to $3,500 and you're cool with that. Should you buy one for gaming? I'm almost reluctant to say yes, not because of their power, but because of the like lack of new snazzy games to run in them. You'd just be running, generally speaking, outside of like Borderlands 3. It's like the only game that would stress these machines out in any capacity. I don't think there's literally a Mac game on the market besides Borderlands 3 that would like come close to stressing out these new, like the power of these new machines, especially on like a Max.
They're also, I really love the new machines, but like Should you buy it for gaming? Like if you have tons of money, then sure. If you don't care about the cost,
Right? Yeah.
they're not like meant for gaming. I would just maybe
Yeah.
qualify with that. Like they're really, really nice productivity machines that can perform really well in games. If
Right.
you want that performance for hopefully quite a bit less money, they should have that upcoming Mac Mini refresh in the next, I don't know, who knows? It's rumors, but in 2022 at some point, which will probably have this chip, the M1Pro and M1 Max,
Right.
for obviously a much lower cost because you're not getting that mini LED display and you're not getting these massive batteries and crazy speakers. And
you could just
everything.
throw on like a $200 to $300 monitor and have like a super machine. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you can wait, you maybe wait. Or if you're only playing lower end games, essentially, well, the M1 Air and M1 13-inch machines are already really good, or there's an M1 Mini already, and they perform really well on all kinds of games. But you know, higher, more demanding games will require you to play in like low settings. So if you want medium to high, yeah, ideally, you know, in my case, it's like I combo. I buy my machines because I do work on them and I do generate income by working on them, and I want to use them for gaming, so it works out. Yeah, unless you just have the funds and you're cozy, it is hard to recommend it as a gaming only machine at this time. That could change next year with either the release of certain hardware like the Mini Sam just mentioned, could change with newer games that come along. Total War Warhammer 3 would probably be the only one on the horizon that would be demanding, and Feral's porting it, so you know they're going to optimize it really nicely. That would be another game that would like, but you're going to spend $2,500 to play a $60 game really well. I mean, if you want to, sure, I'm not going to stop you. Should you? I mean, that's a different question. In relation to the non-native stuff, I mean, part of me is like, yeah, like if you're going to buy one of these machines just to install like Parallels and Crossover or whatever, I almost want to, I don't know, I almost want to laugh. I think it's silly. I would stick with I would just go to streaming, I guess. I'm such an advocate for that. GeForce Now. Or if your main kind of games you want to play aren't in GeForce Now, then just go check out Shadow. Because it just gives you a literal PC and you install whatever you want. Any game will run on it quite nicely for similar pricing. So, but some people really like to tinker with Parallels and Crossover. So, you know, that's up to them. But I think Crossover was delayed. Monterey support. They put out some post about that a week or so ago. I can't quite recall what their deadline was. So I don't know if Crossover even works on the new machines yet. Parallels, I'm pretty sure already does, because I guess Andy Tizer's been testing things like GTA 5 and Crysis and all this jazz. I actually don't know how he's running them, but I'm assuming it's Parallels.
I think he's using Crossover, just the old version.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's just there's not a new version ready yet. All right.
Yeah. The video that was done by Mr. I was just going to say the video that was done by Mr. Mac Wright on YouTube. He was actually using Crossover 17. For some of the games,
right?
So.
There is an 18. It must just not be.
Yeah, I think he actually lists. He actually lists which one. Oh, actually, no. I take it back. There's some of them he was using Crossover 21.
Okay, I guess I don't know what that post was.
And Parallel 17, yeah. So yeah, he actually listed, you know, what he was specifically was using for to make the gameplay on it. So, but. Along with the frame rate.
Okay, yeah, okay. Crossover 21 is the latest one, and they're saying... Okay, apparently Crossover 21 on Monterey is delayed for a little bit.
Yeah,
something.
Yeah, I think that... I actually get emails from our Crossover because I owned a copy of it, and I haven't heard... I got the message that it was going to be delayed, but I haven't heard that it's available for Monterey yet.
Okay, or it's even like the next version, Crossover 21.1 won't run or something, but 21 will. Some weirdness.
Yeah.
Once again,
via Rosetta, maybe.
Right. Once again, like these machines have pretty good power. If you were running an M1 machine or maybe more of like an average Intel machine, you'll definitely see performance gains here, because even the M1 could do like ludicrous things in Crossover that I could never really imagine it could. So. by M1, I just mean the regular M1, the one from last year. I kind of wish they didn't call it just the M1 Pro and the M1 Max, because if you just say M1, it's like, well, which one? But yeah, so of course the Pro and the Max, will you see a 2 to 4 times performance gain in crossover? That's, I actually have no idea about. I would debate that, because you're adding another layer, even multiple layers to running the game, not just through Rosetta. So how much of a performance boost you'll see in like non-native gaming, I'm not clear on, but it is to be sure that you will see a performance gain. All the non-native stuff, basically, the stronger, more powerful your hardware, the stronger, the better experience you're going to have. You can just, like, if you have enough hardware, like if you have like some tricked out Mac Pro or something, you can just like brute force practically run anything through like parallels on like ultra 60 FPS, because you have like 128 gigs of RAM and however, I don't know, 64 gig or two, I don't know how many graphics cards you can shove in the Mac Pros and all that. Like, there's some guy on Reddit mentioning that out of curiosity, like, oh, I'm a professional video guy with like some $10,000 machine or even more. And yeah, he was just like brute forcing essentially a bunch of games in parallels. It was kind of funny. So, how much you can do that with the M1 Pro and the M1 Max? Not sure, but probably quite a bit. But your best bet is absolutely that you're buying one of these new machines for some other purpose in addition to, hey, I also like to play games. That's your best like value for money. At the moment, it's tough to recommend them as a pure gaming machine unless you don't care about the money, and it's all good, in which case, absolutely buy one. They're phenomenal. They look great, feel great. They're a joy to use. And I absolutely cannot wait until this kind of tech and like display quality hopefully comes to whatever new iMacs they cook up next year in 2022. Really hyped for that.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
Yeah, because I already noticed the difference going from the 16-inch MacBook Pro to my iMac. I'm like, it doesn't look as good. It's like, it's almost annoying. My eyes are like, hey, the other screen's like...
The 120 hertz might play into that too.
I think so. Because
it just like feels nicer, even if you can't quite put your finger on it. And
yes,
it's that high refresh,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, it's just smoother. It's smoother. It's also a little brighter. I mentioned the brightness in a previous episode, I think. Mostly because I wear amber tinted computer glasses from Gunnar. So a brighter display helps. So yeah. And that's like our hands-on comments. Yeah, for benchmarking stuff, check out Mr. Macwright and Andy Tizer on YouTube. They'll have you covered, and of course there's sites like Bare Feats, which Ted was looking at for benchmarks, and of course other Mac places. There's so many Mac blogs and everything. I'm sure everyone's chattering about it and testing and everything. So, but yeah, basically big thumbs up. I think it's worth the money. I think it's worth the upgrade. And I think it feels like a real next gen step in hardware and design and usability and speed and power, and really impressed, really happy, and can't wait for more from Apple next year. That's my like ending thoughts on the hardware.
Yeah, sounds good. There's a couple other Apple sort of more general news I wanted to touch on. So one of them was a couple of Apple executives. They addressed Face ID and touchscreen, or the lack of Face ID and touchscreen on the Mac. So I'm quoting here. So quote, and Face ID, when I stare at the laptop's giant notch, I wonder why I can't unlock the machine with my face. So that's what our journalist is saying. And then Apple's exec responds. Mr. Boger said, Touch ID is more convenient on a laptop since your hands are already on the keyboard. And then for touchscreen Macs, Apple's official stance is we make the world's best touchscreen computer on the iPad. It's totally optimized for that. And the Mac is totally optimized for indirect input. We haven't really felt a reason to change that. And that's John Turnus, Apple's senior VP of hardware engineering.
Right, because there's some people calling, like, they basically want a touchscreen iMac, right?
Yeah, so what do you guys think about lack of touchscreen or Face ID?
What do you think, Ted?
I, I don't think I really like touchscreen that much. I mean, I have an iPad, so but with that is fine. But yeah, I'm always cleaning the screen, So I don't really want my screen, if I want to play a nice game or something like that. I really don't want fingerprints all over my screen while I'm playing. Or having to spend 5 minutes cleaning it before I start. So
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of touchscreen. As far as Face ID goes, it's a cool little thing, but I don't I have one of the older MacBook Pros, so I have the finger thing on it, so you can actually do things or put your passwords in or whatever instead of
Right.
typing. You just use your finger, and I love that. I think that's really cool and um, saves me a bunch of typing.
Yeah,
Every time,
I
you
set
know,
it up on my 16-inch, and I've already used it, I don't know, 5 or 10 times. Just boop.
yeah,
Pretty handy. For as far as the Amex, oh yeah, I mean, I can't think of a use case where it's like, I guess because I also have a 27-inch one. It's like, what are you going to do with a 27-inch touchscre, for God's sake? Like, in
I know
reality,
that
what are you
that
really
would
going to do
almost
with
be
it?
silly. Yeah,
I mean, I could see, okay, in like a 21 or whatever, 21.5. Of course, now the new ones are 24s. Maybe, but I don't know. It's like with the iPad Pro, can't you get an iPad Pro that's like friggin' 13 or 14 inches or something, like something enormous? I can't
yeah,
remember. It's like just, I mean, okay, they're expensive, like $1,500 or something, right? But if you're the kind of person, presumably you're a visual artist or a painter or whatever, some sort of creative individual, just get an iPad Pro. Like that's literally what it's designed for and
right.
optimized for, are those sorts of individuals and professions. So it's super portable. It's super powerful. It doesn't even have like USB-C port on it now and stuff
That's
like
Thunderbolt.
Thunderbolt. Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah,
So it's like, because what Microsoft does this, and maybe certain other companies, I don't remember who, they have touchscreen
Yeah.
desktop, combo machines. I don't know. I think it's unnecessary, mostly because of the presence of the iPad, specifically the iPad Pros, or even just the regular iPads. But
One like interesting analysis I heard of touchscreens is, I wish I knew who said this. It was some VP of one of the big companies, Apple, or I
right,
think it was probably one of Apple's. He basically said, it was not even Steve Jobs, that touchscreen like is really marketable and demos really well for like 15 minutes. Like you walk in like Best Buy, there's a row of laptops, you can like interact with the screen, and then
right.
but they basically said when you take the laptop home, you will probably never use the touchscreen ever. You will just use your
yeah,
trackpad or whatever. And the only time I've ever used touchscreen on, I used to own like one of those hybrid whatever 2-in-1
Right.
things, was when I was lying in bed and I would put the laptop like on my chest, and then the screen would be like above me, and I could use my like thumb to like scroll or something.
Right.
But I hate the fingerprints on screens.
yeah,
I think what Ted said and you just now is really the main deterrent. Like,
Yeah.
just no.
Yeah.
Probably not. Yeah.
One of the things that bothers me so much is when someone thinks my Mac screen is a touch screen, and then they try to like interact with it, and like, oh no,
Right.
I gotta go like
Sure.
find some.
Sure, because they're so
screen
used to like
cleaner.
iPhone, iPad, Touch, or whatever. Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's funny. Lack of Face ID. Don't really care. I think the Touch ID is good enough. I mean, like my Intel Mac doesn't have that. But it's fine because I actually use a non-Apple keyboard. I use a Kinesis gaming split keyboard actually, so I can kind of reposition it wherever I want. Mostly I got it actually to type on and write on. It's so much more comfortable than a regular keyboard, like a regular size one, because I can literally, the keyboard's split in half with wires. I could put it like 5 feet apart if I wanted. That'd be absurd. But I keep it more like a natural, like shoulder width apart sort of thing. Anyway, It's super comfortable to type on, especially for a mechanical keyboard. But I think they make do they make a wireless or wired full-size Apple keyboard with Touch ID now?
They do, but the big asterisk is that it requires Apple Silicon, so you cannot use it on an Intel Mac.
Interesting. Yeah, what I do basically is this my keyboard, and even my other one had macro buttons. So I just made a macro button. That's my password. So anytime something wants my password, I just press one button and boop, enters my whole password. Super convenient. So I basically got around that. I don't even use Face ID on my phone. I guess I do for like passwords, and that's it. I guess I don't like the idea of, I'm vaguely paranoid about like my camera being on all the time for stuff. I don't know. I'm not like some conspiracy guy or something, but people's cameras and stuff do get hacked. It is a thing occasionally. You hear horror stories. Not that I'm trying to make people paranoid or something. I don't really have a use for it myself. I also I'm not a, what do you call it? Like shared household. I don't have multiple people on my computer or anything, or anything like that. I don't need like specific layers of security. There's certainly people who do in many situations. But as far as convenience goes on the desktop, I do agree, especially with all the new machines and the new keyboard, basically Silicon onward. The Touch ID is so simple. Your hands are there already. It's just boop. It's as instant as Face ID essentially. I
wish they had Face ID as an option, but I would not want them to get rid of Touch ID. So
that's fair. I agree. It, why not make it an option? And the people that want to use it can use it. Absolutely.
I had another piece of Apple news. This is just a very small little tidbit. It doesn't really mean much, but I think yesterday, the day before, Microsoft passed Apple for world's most valuable company. So Microsoft is sitting at 2.46 trillion market cap. Apple's at 2.43. So Apple's
that's still interesting. That's still interesting though. I wonder what Microsoft did because I know what Apple did to grow and just be valuable. Like other than selling Windows and PCs and I guess maybe Xboxes, what is it that propelled Microsoft above them? I'm kind of curious if there's any specific thing.
Yeah, Microsoft's they've been on a big sort of not rebranding, it's not the right word, but reimagining themselves as they're getting away from they're still obviously like PCs and like home computing, but I think a lot of people just view them as like Windows, and that's a very tiny portion of their business. Right. They're much more like services based. So they like Office 365, Microsoft Azure, the Xbox, obviously, stuff like that. So
right, all the Office products, Microsoft Office, which is also big on like Mac business or whoever needs to use those kind of things.
Yeah, my cousin worked at Apple, doesn't anymore. They use Office 365 at Apple. So yeah, it's just stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, that's true. They make good stuff. Yeah, it's true. They've had this, I think, outdated image maybe for quite a long time until I guess probably the last few years or this maybe last 2 or 3 years or something. So good on them. Yeah, Microsoft's not the evil devil they were in maybe the 90s, by which I mean in like the Mac versus PC wars in the 90s. Now it's like, really, of course, we're wrapping up this podcast in a couple of minutes, but I do find it very interesting, and we have touched upon this before, like the kind of semi-convergence of platforms and not hardware, but like just cross-compatibility in general, and like, not like, oh, this is a Windows-only app or Windows-only productivity thing, or, of course, there's still a lot of Windows-only games, but like outside of that, it's just more like, what tool do you need, and is it available on your platform? If it is, great, use it. Like Microsoft Office stuff is really, really good. I mean, I don't really like Word that much, but I still use Excel, for example, is probably super, super good.
I think part of it too is I think Apple has faltered a little bit. I don't mean like they've made blunders, but just kind of the reality of today's computing climate where chips are so hard to come by. So like Apple had to cut iPhone 13 orders by 10 million units. So like if we assume they make $500 in profit per unit, that's 5 billion. They're just not going to get this quarter, stuff like that. So that obviously drops their share price a little bit. But they can't really do much about that. That's just the nature of TSMC manufacturing literally everybody's chips, or pretty much everybody's chips.
Right. Yeah. Nope. So that's about it. Really quick last minute thing is I had a few small games to mention, but I'm probably going to mention just one, most appropriate. It's this really interesting indie game called Black Book. It was released, I think, in August, but only the Mac release was just released October 18th, so 10, 11 days ago. There is also a free prologue that is Mac compatible, so you can go check it. Prologue is just a fancy word for demo. But it's this really, really interesting, maybe some sort of indie studio out of Eastern Europe or somewhere over there. It's a Slavic tale of, like, I guess, like witchcraft, essentially, hence the name Black Book. So you play this young witch who's out to help people, but also gets wound up with, like, making a pact with the devil, I think, to save her boyfriend or something funny. But it sound like the story may sound juvenile in a sense, but it's actually this really interesting, like, story-rich, super atmospheric RPG game where there's exploration, there's combat, there's just, like, people, like, you're not like an evil witch. You're like, I don't know how to call it, like one of those, I don't know how much, like, you guys / listeners have, like, interacted with Slavic tales, but basically, anyway, like, villagers or people she comes across will actually come to her for help, like, because they know she's a witch and she can, like, you know, do magical things and help them out. So she's not like some evil witch in a hat with a cat or whatever your generic witch image is. You know, she's basically like a force for good, but also happens to wield, like, magical powers and fight monsters and help people out. It's just a really interesting game.
Good
I think
Halloween game too.
Yeah, good Halloween game. I think the visual look of the game is super cool as well. It's
if you're listening to this, definitely check it out. It looks really unique and like really nice visually. It's got a kind of a unique art style.
Yeah, unique art style. The combat's pretty cool. You have to, like, pick different spells, and you have a literal black book in the game. That's like your spell book and everything. And you can, you know, choose how you basically develop your, you don't have, like, stat trees to fill out or something, but there's choices in the story. There's choices around your character and, like, what spells you use. And it's super unique. There's a demo. It's very thematic. It's very positively rated as a 94% rating on Steam from roughly almost 2,000 people. So a lot of people like it. Super cool. There's a demo. It's not even that expensive. It's $20, $25. Normally it's on sale for $20 right now. Yeah, really cool game. And check it out. Great for this time of year. Black Book by, oh my God, can I say their name? The developer is Morteshka, if I'm saying that correctly. Published by Hype Train Digital. So yeah, good Halloween game. And it's on sale. And it has a free demo. Basically, no reason to not just go have a look. Yeah, I did play through the prologue. Really cool variety of gameplay, that exploration, kind of like interacting, helping with townspeople, and then the combat also pretty cool. So, Black Book, perfect Halloween game, and that will do us. We've all kind of got to go do other things. We'll be back next week with a show talking about I don't know what yet. something Mac-y, gamey, techie related. And thanks for listening, guys. Lastly, just quick mention, I intend to be making more of a like community push, I guess. Want to try and interact more with listeners, get them into the Discord, generate some discussion and questions. But if anyone has questions, thoughts, comments, you know, you can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. If you like the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever, kindly leave like ratings or reviews or anything. That always helps us out, helps us grow. If you like the show, share it with someone. All that would be really appreciated. Trying to make more of a sort of an organic push in that sense. And that'll do us. So thanks again, Sam, for being here. I know you got to go to work in a minute. And thank you very much, Ted, also for making the time. And thanks for listening. And we'll catch everyone next time. And have a good evening.
See you later, everyone.
Yep. Good night.
All right, gents, I think that'll wrap up our podcast. We covered a lot about Silicon. What were we talking about before? Apple history. Kind of bashed them a little bit, but that's okay. We love them. That wraps it up. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Thanks always to Sam and Cass for being here. You guys are awesome. Really love the tech stuff at the end, by the way. All those extra details. I have like a very service level understanding of some of this stuff, or in some cases not at all. So I really enjoy hearing you guys either talk about it or answer my questions. I appreciate that.
All right, see you later, everybody.
Yeah, cheers.
A big thank you to Kevin McLeod for the intro and outro music. Be sure to check out his library on the web, You can find more episodes of our show on our website, macgamecast.com, or in all major podcast directories. If you enjoy the show, please consider commenting, following, or sharing. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.